We are the Allies class. We are a group of girls who help and empower each other through obstacles. To meet empowering women in our community, we were matched with people in our career interest. Our goal was to reflect on each individual's stories and learn what their challenges were and how they overcame them. We reflected on their stories to get inspiration to keep moving on and keep pushing at our challenges.
My name is Elizabeth Freeman, and I'm an actress in Portland. I grew up in Canada. Well, when my parents broke up, and my mom had to figure out how to support us all, she started working at a theater company. So we were always around that and were exposed to that. My sister and I would make up our own shows, and we would perform for the family and make these silly skits and things like that. I think we're always doing that, yeah. But what happened in high school was, I think you always know deep down kind of what you wanted to do, you have this feeling, right? It's in there somewhere. And but it's scary sometimes to do that, because it wasn't being part of the theater group or anything, wasn't anything that my friends were involved in. So it's not anything that I gravitated towards. If I wanted to do it, I needed to step out of my group and do that, and finally got the guts to do it. I busted out. I said, it's my last shot. I'm going out for the school show. And I did it, and I got a little part in the school show. Girl number 3 in Anything Goes. I had the most fun. It was like the best thing ever. I should have been doing this the whole time. I should have been doing this the whole time. I knew I should have been doing it the whole time, and now school's over, and I didn't. I think that's one of the regrets that I do have. After that experience, I did take some acting classes, and I loved them. I was just really, really loved it. After college, I got married. So I met my husband young, and we moved to California, and he had this job at this software company. And secretly in the back of my mind I was going, okay, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to become a movie star. So it was like a quick realization, like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to be a movie star. I did take some more acting classes. Now fast forward to, I don't know, 4 years ago maybe. I was trying to figure out, I had sort of, my career had evolved. I'd been doing all kinds of different things, and I wasn't happy. It wasn't fulfilling me. And so I sat down and just tried to think one day, like I recollect doing this, like I literally sat down and said, okay, what was it that I ever did that made me feel really happy? And it was when I was taking those acting classes. It was a wonderful thing, because I found out maybe a couple months after I started taking my first acting class that my husband had stage 4 cancer. And so that, the acting kind of saved me, just my mental health. When he was diagnosed, we had no idea, and there was no signs or symptoms or anything like that. So just all of a sudden being young and healthy and thinking that you have your entire life ahead of you. You have your whole life. You feel like it's all mapped out. And just all of a sudden that to be just, nope. and there's nothing scarier than that. Like, there's nothing scarier than hearing you have stage 4 cancer, you're probably gonna die, and when, like, the person you love most in this world, someone, you've built your entire life with somebody, and then there's nothing scarier than that. So it was like, all of a sudden, you learn a whole lot of lessons really fast. You learn that you can't count on having tomorrow, so you have to do what you want to do today, and there's nothing to be scared of, because what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? It was already happening in my life. So all of a sudden, acting and going out and going to auditions or anything like that, all of a sudden doesn't become so scary anymore, because it's like, what the hell? I had this space that I could go that was completely my own, and all new people that only knew me for me, and I could do this thing that made me happy, and then sort of it gave me a breather, and then I could come back and deal with everything else. Somehow I found out about film, and I went to an audition at SMCC. They were doing their, every year, all the students in the media group, they all create these films and have a film festival every year. So I went out on an audition for that, and I got my first movie, and that was really cool. And it was called Dead End Street. I'll tell you what, the first time you see your face up on the big screen in the movie theater, that's a really pretty awesome feeling. And then, last year my husband died. So now I'm in a different situation. What a lot of factors got me to this point, I think. A lot of it is knowing yourself. So being able to admit to yourself what it is that you want and what makes you happy. That's not an easy thing to do. There's always people telling you what you should and shouldn't be, and especially when I was growing up and my mother being involved with the theater and all that stuff, I was never, ever encouraged to go out for acting. Never. It was always, you don't want to do that. It's the last thing you want to be. You'll never make any money. It's a hard life. I think coming back to it after everything that had gone on in my life and having this whole other life, which was great, I think being able to admit to myself what it was that I guess my soul needed to be happy, that takes courage, I think. And it also takes a certain amount of being able to know yourself. I think the biggest thing is just don't be scared. Don't be scared. There's nothing to be scared of. I think losing your fear is the biggest thing that you can do for yourself when you try and do anything.
My name is Shauna Kearns. I work at Day One Residential, which is for substance abuse for teenagers. I work at the female house and the male house. And then I'm also a psych tech on child and adolescent services at Spring Harbor Hospital. I've lived in Maine my whole life. I went to Massachusetts, no offense guys. I graduated from SMCC with my degree in behavioral health, and I'm in Springfield College right now, be done in December, my degree in human services with an addictions concentration, and I have my MHRTC, which is a mental health rehabilitation technician certificate, and I'm also a certified alcohol and drug counselor. In high school, that's when it all really comes about, and everybody, is starting to try stuff, and there's parties or whatever, and I was never really into that, mainly because my dad was a cop, and I was like, well, this is not going to go well. So I was more scared of dealing with him than to even try anything. I remember the first time I got in trouble for anything was when I was like 19, probably. I was on the beach. It was like past midnight with a bunch of friends, and apparently not supposed to be on the beach at a certain time of night, and so we got in trouble, and we were drinking, and I got a court summons, and was terrified, so I called my parents and was like, so I just got in trouble for underage drinking, and at that point, because my dad had, I guess, knew some people, it's probably not the best thing to say, but it got thrown out, and like it never happened. So I didn't really learn any consequences from that because I did it and didn't get in trouble for it. So I was like, okay, this is going to happen all the time. This is all right. So I kind of kept it going. I was going to parties all the time. I was, doing a lot of underage drinking. And like I said, I wasn't really working any, like, career-driven jobs. So I was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to go work my little retail job and spend all my money on whatever. Just being super irresponsible. And so then I moved away to Florida, and it was still continuing, and I would come home and I would just reek of alcohol. My mom would, I think she was just so upset, and she didn't want to argue with me because I was getting really snappy and mean to her that I think she just kind of backed off and didn't want to say anything. And so what kind of really turned my whole life around was that I had just gotten a brand new job, and I thought things were like, all right. Again, it was still retail, but it was like full time. I was going to be a manager, and it was, woohoo. And I went out one night with the owner of the company's daughter, and I hadn't eaten in probably almost 24 hours. I'd been up all day. But I wanted to go out because I was like, oh, if I go out with her, and we get to hang out, it only benefit me for the company because we'll have a good relationship and whatever. And I drove home, and I was exhausted, and I had been drinking, and I got into I fell asleep behind the wheel, and I got into an accident. I ended up in someone's front yard, which was also, thankfully, they didn't make me pay for damage to the lawn. And right after it happened, a car had just passed by. So had I been maybe 5 seconds later, I would have hit that person. Because I was going one way, and I lost control, and I went on the other side of the road into someone's yard. And so, and that guy stopped and asked if I was okay. And, at first I was trying to back out. I was like, oh my God, I gotta reverse out of this place and go home. Not realizing that my front end of my car was kind of smashed into a ditch, and the back end was up in the air, so I couldn't really reverse. But in the moment, I just was panicking. But that guy pulled over and asked me if I needed help, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm good, it's fine. But all I can think about at this point in my life, now that it's been a while and I've had time to process it, is that had he been going any faster, or had I been any later, I would have hit that guy in the driver's seat, and that's something I could have never forgiven myself for. So after that, I called my mom. I told her I got in an accident. She asked me if I'd been drinking, and I said no, which was stupid. And I was like, but you're probably going to need to come get me. And so cops came, and I got arrested and went to jail for it was a night. But it was embarrassing because this is where my priorities were at the time, let me just tell you. So despite knowing how serious this was, and I was still in the frame of mind that things can't touch me, I was invincible, whatever, to the point where the cop who arrested me, I was in the back seat with my hands cuffed, and they'd given me my phone back. I don't really know why, but they gave me my phone, and I was on my phone updating my Facebook status that I was going to jail. That's where my priorities were. I was like, let me just tell everybody, I wonder how many likes I'll get because I'm going to jail. So even though I couldn't drive, I still physically had my license, so, which meant I still had my ID, I was still old enough to buy alcohol, and I was like, okay. So my friends would pick me up. I remember I had this little hot pink backpack I'd bring with me everywhere, and I'd go to stores and just like buy stuff, put it in my backpack, come home, have a little stash in my closet, and just drink when I was out with my friends or drink when I was at home, knowing that under my bail conditions, somebody could come to my house anytime and check any of my stuff. No one did, again, so I never really learned the consequences of it. So I had this little stash in my room, and I was getting drunk at home all the time. It was just like still a mess. And then I did this alternative program thing, and they breathalyze you when you first get in, and I had to take another photo, whatever. And it was like 50 people, and there was like mostly guys, and then girls, and it was all ages. I mean, I think there was some teenage kids who were there for like their first offense or whatever, and then there was people like in their 50s. And we were sleeping on little cots, doing community service, cleaning a high school, and like you couldn't have your phone, it was basically like, not really, I mean, it was better than jail, but we were eating jail food, and we were, doing all this stuff, and there were corrections officers there at all times, making sure we were doing everything we were supposed to do. And I remember there was this one guy who was like really hardcore alcoholic, and he knew obviously he had to come to this program, so he just stopped drinking like the night before, and he normally would drink every single day. And so he was going through withdrawals, and alcoholic withdrawals are one of the worst withdrawals you can have. And the guy ended up having a seizure, and he fell in the middle of us. We were in an elementary school at that point trying to clean it, and he fell and cracked his head open, and so he was bleeding everywhere. And I remember we had this, I felt so bad because there was this like first grade classroom, and they had this little quilt with like the alphabet on it, and it was like really cute, like handmade, and we just needed something to like put under his head and to clean up, and we had to, so we took that, and I was like, those poor kids, like their little blanket is ruined, because this guy is bleeding all over it. And when he finally came to, he didn't really know where he was, he didn't know what his name was, any of this stuff, and they took him to the hospital and whatever, and kind of informed us like he's not going to complete the program, obviously, because he's going through some serious withdrawals, and he has a really serious problem. But what really did it for me was that during all this time, I had a cousin who was, he was like 10 years, almost 10 years older than me. And since he was like 10 years old, he had been battling with cancer, and it had come and gone. And during all this stuff, he ended up dying. And so, to me, I was like, and my cousin, his name was Justin, and he always, despite knowing that he was gonna go soon, he knew. He was a quadriplegic, so he couldn't use his legs or his arms or whatever. So he was so positive all the time. Like I remember there was one time he was in the hospital, and he had like all this like food, and they're like, oh, Justin, you probably shouldn't eat all that. He's like, what does it matter? I'm gonna die anyway. And I was just eating all this stuff, and so he was always like really funny and like always super positive. Like he knew he wasn't gonna last very long, but he always kept a great attitude. And so when he died, I was just thinking like, what an embarrassment I am to my family that here is Justin who was super positive and full of life, and his life gets cut short, and then here I am making really awful decisions, being super reckless with my life, potentially putting so many other people in danger. Like I can't even count on my hands and feet how many times I probably drove completely annihilated after I went anywhere. And it's awful to admit, and it's not something to be proud of in any sense. And then obviously I was very lucky that what happened in my accident was not any worse than it was. But I was just thinking like, wow, I am a terrible person. My family is so worried about what I'm doing and having to help me pay for all these legal fees and bail me out of jail and do all this stuff and drive me around everywhere, and bring me to court and do all this stuff and, try not to tell people what's really going on with me. And you know, and then there's my cousin who was like super positive, and his life was cut short, and I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I felt like it was disrespectful to my family and to him that I was being so careless and so irresponsible with my life, and then here he was, and his life gets cut short, and he was such a great person. So that's kind of what really changed a lot of things in my mind and put a lot into perspective, because I was like, I don't want to cut my life short over these really stupid things that I'm doing when, you know, his was cut too short and he was great. And so that's when I kind of got rid of all the negative people in my life, and that's when I started looking into school and trying to do something and make a change for myself. Because I realized like what I was doing was not working, and I wasn't happy. You know, maybe I had like fleeting moments of being happy, but it was because I was so drunk. I thought I was happy, but I was not. We don't have the power to choose where we come from, but we can choose where we go from here. And so, you know, we can always go through a lot of things in our life, whether it be choices we made or just things that happen around us in our family, in our school, and whatever, in our environment. And but we can always get past that somehow. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, for me, it's taken 3 years to get where I want to be, and I'm in a good place, but I still want to get better. And it's super motivating when you finally start to see things changing to keep it going. And, you know, I think some people think that things are going to happen and they like fast and they want the instant gratification, but this stuff takes work and it takes time, and it's really important that to not let your past and what's going on really dictate your future. It's good to recognize it and learn from it, but it's also really important to not let that be all of who you are. It can still be a part of you, and it most certainly is, but it doesn't have to be who you are as a whole. And you can really move forward in any way you choose if you want it bad enough, and that's kind of something I always try and carry with me.
This is Bonnie Simon. She's from Lebanon, Maine, and she's in graduate school to become a social worker.
I moved here from Maryland in 9th grade, so I had like a pretty big move, pretty big change, but I was kind of ready for it because middle school wasn't that great for me. I didn't have that many friends. I kind of got bullied, so kind of like ended middle school, was like ready to meet new people and make new friends. So I moved here. It was a little bit hard, like the first couple months, just being new and like a totally new place, didn't know anybody or how anything was done. Through high school, had like probably like 3 or 4 friends that I consistently hung out with, and that was about it. Yeah, kind of boring, kind of just did my thing, tried fairly hard in my classes. College was just like totally different, and mostly in good ways. I enjoyed college a lot more than high school. Like, I never lived on campus because I wanted to save money, so I lived at home my first year, and then I lived in an apartment by myself my second year, and then I had a roommate my third year. If you're not afraid of like being on your own, I highly recommend. I think everyone should live by themselves for a year. I think it like brings so much personal growth. You learn to like really be comfortable with yourself, not relying on anyone else, and like I still recommend that to anybody that can afford it and do it. It was like the best decision I ever made, was living by myself for a year. I graduated in 3 years instead of 4, and that was really challenging at times to get all of that done. I worked through college. I did summer school every summer online. I took 20 credits instead of 16. My second year that I was there, my mom got diagnosed with cancer, so that was really hard too. I would say when my mom was sick, obviously there was times where I was feeling really anxious, there was times where I was feeling really down and upset, but I don't know if it was like a long enough period of time of feeling those things to say I had depression or I had anxiety, but I've definitely dealt with those emotions. My family supported what I was doing, my friends and everybody. I think, but I think you'll see. Like, you'll say, oh, I'm going to college for social work, and people are like going to be like, good luck supporting yourself, like finding a job that like you're going to make enough money to support yourself, like good luck. People have that kind of attitude who you tell it to. There's also, even while you're in college, people that are like, oh, well, I'm getting my degree in biology. Like, you're not even here for a real thing. Like, people with that, too, like, full of themselves, thinking, like, my degree is so much harder than yours. I kind of knew from, like, a young age that that's what I wanted to do. I don't remember originally ever having an inspiration. It was more just, like, this, like, thing inside of me that I just felt like if someone needed help, like, I was going to help them. When I was little, like, a little too willing to give people advice to the point where they were like, hey, leave me alone, like, I don't want your advice, I don't want your help. I was kind of like that when I was younger. I struggled with that at my job now. Like, the answer to you can be, like, so easy, like, if you just do this, like, you're gonna be fine, but if someone else doesn't see it, or if someone else doesn't care, like, or doesn't want your help, that's not your fault. You couldn't possibly understand, like, what I'm going through, so don't try to help me because there's no way you could get it, which, I mean, is, like, true sometimes. I think it's also really important as a social worker to be like, yeah, I can't imagine, like, what you've been through. The weakest thing you can do, in my opinion, is not ask for help. Like, the weakest thing you can do is try to, like, is to not do anything about what you're going through and to just keep quiet and not say anything. The strong thing to do is to talk about it and then be like, this is going on and it's really hard and I don't know what to do. At least for me, because the easier thing to do is just be like, I'm just going to pretend like nothing's happening and I'm just going to go about my life like everything's fine and I'm not going to talk about it with anyone. Even, like, it was ridiculous, like, while my mom was sick, like, even now, like, I'll mention it, and, like, some friends that I have that I'm pretty close with is like, you never told me that, like, your mom was sick? Like, what? Like, we were friends, like, 2 years ago when you were going through that, and you never told me, and so I think talking about it, talking about stuff, whether it's with a friend, a family member, a counselor, like anyone you feel comfortable with. I know we don't all have families we feel like we can go home to and talk about anything with, and sometimes you have times in your life where you don't really feel like you have friends you can talk to either, but there's always someone.
This is Sue Grant. She works at Carlisle Academy in Limington.
I'm an occupational therapist, and I've got some specialty certifications as an occupational therapist. One of them is certification in sensory integration. So I work with children that have sensory processing difficulties. And then I'm also a hippotherapy clinical specialist. We use horses for therapy. And we see about 120 people a week. They come in. Most of the people, the large majority of people that come in are children with Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, things like that. Mm-hmm. We have some older people. We start seeing people in therapy at 18 months of age. That's not even 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And the reason that the horses work well as a therapy service is because you can move the child in different positions. Mm-hmm. And you can get the horse to do different movement figures, so it really stimulates function in their brain. And that activity can help the grief process. We see people that are grieving, and some of the people we see are veterans who are coming home from war and they're having problems related to being in combat. The trauma of being in combat and the trauma of losing somebody is very similar to what it does to you. So having something healthy like that, like a horse, is, or at least the opportunity to participate and be around the animal, is very comforting. Yes, we have had children with Tourette's. And it's interesting with Tourette's because a lot of those symptoms dissipate when they get on the horse because, again, their brain is kind of tuned in, aroused. And so some of those symptoms like Tourette's and also seizures don't typically happen while the child is engaged in riding because the information, again, from the movement of the horse, it really helps the brain to just kind of settle down. What are my strengths? I think I'm a very loyal person. So if I'm your friend or your mother, I'm very loyal to you. I am very honest. And I think the biggest strength I have is I'm very passionate about what I like to do. And when you have something that you really like to do, it makes it easier to do it. I have a brother, you won't believe this, almost 1 year older to the day, and a brother almost 1 year younger to the day. We were all born in August 14th, 16th, and 20th, 1 year apart. I was stuck between the two. And that was really hard, to be the only girl in a family of all boys. I had to work really, really hard. And I paid my own way through school. When I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to go away to school and learn about other people and kind of experience that. When I went to college, I had never met anybody who was black. I had never met anybody who was Jewish. I'd never met anybody who was really different from the people in my town. And so it was quite an eye-opener. And the first day, this is a funny story, the first day that bagels were brought out to the cafeteria, all of the students, it was like on a Sunday or something, go, bagels. They go running and I'm sitting there and I go, what's a bagel? Because I'd never seen a bagel before. I didn't know what it was. And people made fun of me for quite some time because of the things I didn't know. But I just learned to, that first year was a little tough, kind of making some adjustments. But I stuck with it and persevered, and it was really the best thing I could have done. Getting into college was easy, and when you get good grades, you have a lot of choices. In the first year at college, I remember I had to work. I had to have part-time jobs through everything. And I'd never worked during the school year in high school. I always only worked in the summer. And I remember going, I can't do this. I can't do work and college at the same time because I'm not smart enough, or I didn't know how to manage my time really well. Our family has a disease called Charcot-Marie tooth disease, and it's my dad had it, my aunt has it, my cousin has it, my grandmother had it, and now I have it. And it's a mild form of muscular dystrophy. So you lose your balance, your hearing. I just got hearing aids, and some of the feeling in your legs. So that's been a little tough from time to time to do my job, because my job's pretty physical. It's walking a lot, it's having to get the horses and all of that. So I've had to make some adjustments to my job so that I can still continue to work. The biggest adjustment was I got it's called a streamer, and it goes around your neck, and it's like a Bluetooth. So when a phone call comes in on my cell phone or the office phone, I hit a button and the voice comes through to my hearing aids. And then when we're in the arena and I'm working with children, I have a little, what's it called? Microphone that I can clip onto people, and I hit my Bluetooth and they can talk directly into the microphone so I could hear them, because I was having difficulty hearing people. The biggest supporter, I've been working for 35 years, and really the biggest supporter for me for the past 29 years has been my husband. My dad really encouraged me to do what I wanted to do. And my mom was a little more like, my mother was like, don't you want to go to the University of Maine at Farmington and be a speech pathologist? Because that was like 15 minutes away. That was another choice. That was my backup plan. Listen to your heart, and then really take a very close look at what you like to do and what comes easy for you, and follow that path. So that doesn't, that's not applicable just to occupational therapy. That's applicable to everything in life. And it sounds really dumb and old. I know it does. But it's true. I'm here to tell you, it's the truth. You just need to follow what's in your heart.
My name is Gabby Mishu, and I'm a pastry chef at Walters in Portland. I'm the youngest of 3, so I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. And I graduated from Macaulay High School, so I had a pretty good upbringing. Both of my brothers and my sister went to public school, so I I kind of got like the best of both worlds, and with like friends from South Portland and friends from Portland and all over. My Grammy. Growing up, she has a grapevine from my great-grandmother in her backyard. So every fall we used to make grape jelly together. And she always like gives me hand-me-down cookbooks from her great-grandmother or grandmother that are from like the 1970s and like all these super old books. So she had a lot of influence on me deciding that I wanted to bake. I get a lot of satisfaction from it. I think that one of the coolest things is going into work and having like one of the waitresses or waiters just kind of be like, you got a really good review on one of your desserts last night, they said it was amazing. It's just a really cool feeling, and just being able to post pictures on Instagram and Facebook and having people comment on them, just be like, that looks so good. It's a really cool feeling. I ended up going into a restaurant in Portland and kind of working under a pastry chef for a day just to see what it was like, and it was really eye-opening to see the different types of areas in the kitchen and just seeing the different desserts that you could make rather than just like going in and baking a croissant. I could go in and do like a chocolate torte, and it was just like completely opposite, and it seemed more of something that I wanted to do. And then I saw the job for Walters posted on Craigslist, and I applied for it. I think telling myself that I was good enough to do it. I'd always worked under people, and now I work solo. I think that trying to talk myself up and tell myself that I was good enough to be a pastry chef and that this is the career path that I wanted to take, I think that was the most difficult thing for me to do. I was the one that put myself out there, and I was the one that went to the interview and just like was able to talk myself up and say, this is all the stuff that I've done and this is why you should hire me. And it was really eye-opening for me to have that confidence in myself, because I'd lost it, and it was a really good turning point in my life. You really just, I think that it's about putting yourself out there, and just sometimes you're not going to succeed, but sometimes you are, and every time that you don't makes it even more better for when you do. I think that with anything in life, just if you want it, you got to go for it. You can't give up on it, and I think that's the most important lesson I've learned. My career has really just kind of taken off. I've gotten the opportunity to go, I've been on Channel 8 News, and I just did Channel 6 Live, so that was really cool, and I'm going to be in an article for a Maine magazine in May. I think it's a really humbling experience to have all of these amazing opportunities to just kind of put myself out there and kind of get my name out there. When I was in middle school, I lost my oldest brother, and I think that every day that he struggled a lot with, he had like social anxiety, he had a lot of issues that a lot of people didn't understand, and I think that like every morning that I wake up, I get to be here another day unlike him, and I get to live a life that I get to smile about. You know, I get to go to work every morning, and I walk into the kitchen, and it's just like I get to turn on the lights, and it's just a really amazing feeling that I get to have this opportunity to be happy and come home with a smile every day. It's like I'm not even going to work. It's like I'm just going to have fun. My mom always tells me that if you get to come home with a smile on your face, then that's the most important thing, because you want to be able to love your job, because that in turn is going to make you love your life. This is just something that I just kind of woke up one day and I was like, you know, I want to try this. And I've been fortunate enough that I've stayed with it. And, you know, every day that I come home from Walters, I still bake. I'm trying new recipes. I'm always on the internet looking to see what else I can make. It's just all about practice, 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 because in baking, like, there's so many different varieties of paths that you can go down, and I want to be successful at all of those. Where I started from, which was, I mean, I started washing dishes at a nursing home, and now I'm here. So, and that's not a huge time span. So it's pretty crazy how far I've come with it.
My name is Anna Gravel, and I do a lot of things. I'm a mommy, I'm an actor, I'm a singer, I'm a film producer, and now I'm an on-air radio personality. I'm from what people know as the county. I grew up in Houlton, Maine. You know, the first time I acted, was in 3rd grade in this school play, and it was really fun. And then we moved back to Houlton. I was in the 6th grade, and there was a children's theater program in town. And I have to say that that probably is what fostered the beginning of my education in acting. And from there, it was just the high school programs that were provided. We had an amazing, team. My band teacher, our chorus teacher, the lengths they went to provide, I don't know, just great opportunities for us. And I remember we did show choir, and we won the state championship when I was in high school. We even went to Branson, Missouri to the national show choir competition. I had a solo that year. I was terrified. I was a freshman in high school, and a little known fact about me is I suffered from terrible stage fright when it came to singing. I would recite all of the monologues that you wanted. I would do cold reads till the cows come home, but if you wanted me to sing in front of a group of people, it was terrifying. I had a really hard time. So here I was flying across the country, this little freshman thing, to go to Branson, Missouri, of all places, to perform in this national show choir competition, and we did the African celebration. And we were just a bunch of white kids from northern Maine. But you know what was amazing is that all of these kids from D.C., which was primarily, a group of black students, were sitting in the front row center. And as we sang the African national anthem, I think they cheered the loudest for us. It was pretty incredible. But those kinds of experiences, I guess, they just added to what I already knew. And I guess for me, it was never a question of what I was going to do when I grew up. That's all I ever wanted to do. I think what happened is that I grew up, and I let fear creep in a little bit. I got scared, and I thought, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe it won't work, and so my path took a few different turns. I don't have any regrets, though. Sometimes, in the past, I would catch myself wishing things had gone differently, but I'm glad they didn't, because everything that happens to us makes us who we are. It's more to draw from as an actor, but also as a person, and I think what's really important is to live your life, to have a life, so that you can experience being human. I went to the University of Southern Maine, and I got a degree in theater, believe it or not, and I loved college probably more than high school. College is where I felt like I met people who got me. So I have friendships from college that have lasted 15 years. It was an amazing experience, because in college you're choosing friendships based on what you're interested in and what you like and what you think about the world around you and how you feel about things. Whereas in high school, you've got friends because you have the same class, or your parents are friends, or it's a small town and you happen to have the same homeroom. I think that happens. I mean, less for me being involved in the arts, less for me being involved in the band and the chorus. I did have friendships that existed also because of our mutual interest in being in the one-act play, for example. But I found that the longest-lasting friendships I obtained I got in college. When I graduated college, I actually went down to New York, and I was honestly terrified. I didn't have a plan. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't have an infrastructure of friends, and my boyfriend at the time came down and he proposed to me. That boyfriend happened to become my husband and also is my daughter's father. We're now great friends, but I accepted his proposal, yes, because I loved him, in case he's listening, but in part because I was afraid. I think I was scared, and I came home and lived my life out, and so that's sort of where my path shifted. Not too long ago, I was considering moving to LA and just trying that out. And then this job became available here at the radio station, and now I get to perform every morning on the radio, and somebody pays me to talk, which is cool, because I don't know if you've noticed, I talk kind of a lot. But for me, I'm passionate about filmmaking and acting and performing, and I do believe you can do that anywhere. But the reason I didn't move is because my daughter is here. and because this is my life, this is where my life is, this is where my family is, this is where my friends are. I do love Maine. It's very difficult to make a living as an actor in Maine, and a lot of people have to decide, am I going to go to LA, am I going to go to New York? A lot of people who are interested in stage productions sometimes seem to go to New York. There's also a lot of television productions there, but usually you'll find that TV and film typically is going to be, that career path will be pursued in LA or in California. That doesn't mean you can't be an actor in Maine. You can. I have so many friends who do it here. Because you know what? I believe that you can do anything. I believe anybody can do anything if they put their mind to it. And if they have the passion and the drive, I don't believe failing can happen unless you give up, right? But there have been moments where I've been like, am I a good actor? I feel like I'm a good actor. And I think everybody experiences that. It's just a matter of how you handle it. And I think the only way to handle that, those questions in your mind when you're wondering, am I good at this? Should I be doing this? Oh, I didn't get that part. Oh, that really stinks. Like, I was perfect for that part. I know I could have nailed it. The only advice I could give is just to be able to let go of it and know that there's going to be another part coming up and you're just going to move on to the next thing and try a little bit harder, do a little bit better. And sometimes it has nothing to do with your ability or your performance. Sometimes not getting a part has everything to do with, maybe they were casting a little older or casting a little younger, or maybe the people that you would be matched with, it wasn't quite a match, or for whatever reason. I would say do your best not to internalize that and make it about you, because it's not a reflection on you or your talent. Most times it's not a reflection of you and your talent at all. I think there have been times where people have questioned my decision to be an actor. I've definitely gotten the standard, especially when you study theater in college, what are you going to do with that degree? Where are you going to go from there? People who questioned my decisions, about pursuing filmmaking, putting a lot of time and effort into that. And all I can say is, you have to do what's right for you. You have to know deep down that it is right. I mean, I think the only thing that sets us apart from the people who are successful in film or in the theater, successful actors, is they were just in the right place at the right time and they just never gave up. It's kind of how I see it. I think it's important to know your strengths and to definitely have a plan. But I also think it's important not to be sidetracked or discouraged by other people. People who can't understand that this is the thing that makes you tick. For me, so I took some time off from acting for a while after I had my daughter. I was in Godspell while I was pregnant with her. After I had her, I did Agnes of God, which is a very heavy play. And it was a wonderful experience. And then some things in my life changed. I ended up, her father and I ended up getting divorced and went through this transitional period in my life. But I had a really super awesome little kid. And so that was pretty great. But I took 5 years away from the theater, and it was really hard. And I just always felt like something was missing. So then, on a whim, I decided to move across the country. So I sold all my stuff, and I packed up a U-Haul and a car, my little Yaris, and we hitched the U-Haul to it, and my daughter and I took off. She was 4 at the time. And we drove across country to Utah because my sister was living there at the time. And I auditioned the week I got there at this theater in Salt Lake City, Utah, called the Hale Center Theater. And I didn't realize what a big deal this theater was. I just knew that I missed it, and I was just going to try it. And I went without any expectations. I just went because I just wanted to do something, that I loved again. So I went and I got a call back, and it was like super exciting. I was like, that's cool. And people were in that callback with me because this was a professional theater in town, saying this is my 3rd audition and my first callback. And I started to get nervous, and I thought, oh man, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? And I knew, I was not tied to the outcome or anything like that. But I got into the play. And the first day I came in for the table read with the whole cast, and we read through the script, and I heard the music for the first time. It was like coming home, and you step out onto that stage, and that's where I thrive. That's where I feel confident. When I step onto that stage, I know what's expected of me. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know how it works. I know that's home to me. And so that's why I keep coming back to that. And same with sitting in front of a camera, except for in this case, because interviewing's hard. But, you know, when I'm sitting there and I have a character, and I've studied that character, and I've sat with the script, and I'm working opposite an amazing scene partner, and we're there in that moment, there's nothing quite like that for me. Nothing that comes close to that. And that's why I keep coming back to it. So even when people say to me, are you sure about that? Or, you know, aren't you glad to have a job? Or don't you, I mean, it's a fun hobby. It's not a hobby to me. It's not a hobby. It was my career choice. It's my passion, and it's the thing that I think I was meant to do. So that's why I keep doing it. You just have to know that for yourself. You know, I think everybody has struggles. I think as we grow up, we experience different kinds of family dynamics. I've had loss. I've felt grief. I've felt loneliness. I've been homeless before. I've been broke. And I've also experienced incredible joy when I had my daughter, when I've collaborated, when I've had successes. And I think that's just life. I think everybody is going to experience something for them that's hard. And what's hard for me might not be hard for you, but hard is hard, you know? Because if it's hard for you, it's hard. What happens to us doesn't define us. It enhances our experience on this plane of existence, and it adds to our character. And I know that's the worst thing to say, well, it builds character. But it does. And for me, for my part, I think that with everything I've experienced in my life, I'm able to put that even into my acting and in general just into my life. For me, acting is not about memorizing lines or walking in the blocking that's been given to you or sitting there. It's not about me. You know, acting is about the character that you've been given. It's about making connections, and it's about finding the truth inside of that character. Meryl Streep said, acting is behaving truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And that is absolutely true, and I live by that, because you have a unique opportunity to tell someone's story.
I am Teresa Andrews. I work over at Mainline Inc. in South Berwick. I have worked there for about 2 years, and my first year I was apprenticing, my first year and a half apprenticing, learning how to tattoo, and while I was doing that I had a full-time job working up at Lowe's. So while I had my full-time job so I can pay my bills, I had to work pretty much for free, you know, for a year and a half, you know, learning how to tattoo. After a couple months of learning what you're doing and being able to put machines together, learning the basics, building the trust with your artist and everything, the person that's teaching you, your mentor, it's a big thing for them to let you start tattooing on their clients. I finished high school with about a 3.0 GPA. I'm not a fan of school, but all through high school I did do art classes. It's pretty much the only thing that saved me from not going crazy, you know what I mean? Yeah. And being judged and going through all that stuff. But I did graduate, get out of there, and I went to college after. I went to a community college for, I want to say I did almost 4 years. But I only did it part-time because I had to work and pay my bills. So I also had a full-time job, and I was going to school like 2 or 3 classes, you know, a semester or whatever, just to make my way through. When I first started out, it was just, you know, the classes that I wanted to take, like the art classes or anything that was fun, you know, because it's completely different. Going to college is completely different. It's like you're treated like an adult versus high school, you're treated like a child. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't like school. I'm not a fan. You know, not for me kind of thing. But my parents kind of made me do it. But at the same time, like, there's a couple classes that I took and I was like, I'm really happy I took a couple of these classes because they really open your eyes to a whole bunch of stuff that's out there. You know, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to, you know, when you turn 40, what are you going to do? You can still work your retail job? Or are you going to, you know, what's going to make you happy and what's going to get you there? Yeah. And a couple of those courses, like, really kind of give you that whole open door of what's actually going on in the outside world. I never knew what I wanted to do for a career. Everybody would always ask, what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you get older? I don't know. No idea. I've always been an artist ever since I was a freaking kid. You know, drawing things and painting things, creating things, whatever it may be. There's always some kind of a project going on. And when I went to college, I didn't know what I could do. You know, I'm like, I just know I like art, but I don't want to be an art teacher. and not very many artists can make it out there on their own, like unless you're Picasso or something crazy like that, and you die, and then you become famous, whatever. But outside of that, there's not really a lot of fields you can go into. So I was like, okay, well, what's my alternative? I'm like, maybe I can do advertising, because you can make a decent amount of money in advertising. It's the business world. There's always going to be business around it, and it's not going anywhere. And then, I was kind of wishy-washy on doing that or graphic design, and I didn't really want to do either one. Definitely not a passion for either one of those, but they were kind of in the field, so I was kind of okay with it. But after I got my AA, I left, and I moved to Maine. I'm actually from California, by the way. So I was going to school out in California, and I was either going to transfer to Northern California and finish my bachelor's so I can have something to go get a decent job with, or I was going to move to Maine. So I moved to Maine, oddly enough. And when I moved here, I thought I could finish school. And after seeing how much they charge, to finish up, and a lot of my credits don't transfer over, so I had to take more school. And I didn't want to do that because I don't like school anyways. It's not for me. The structure of it is just not for me. And so I was really bummed out, because unless I want to go down to Boston, I was kind of stuck, and then I re-looked into other options. So I started doing craft fairs, to see if I can make my way with there. And it was going good, but it's not a career, you know what I mean? You can't really do that. So I started looking into tattooing again. When I was 18, I started to look into tattoo shops because I was getting tattooed. I enjoyed them. I love the art, the permanent art on the body. It's just a whole new level, But every tattoo shop I went into, nobody wanted to hire a girl. Yeah, and they told me that. It was horrible. And so it kind of deterred me from going into a couple shops, because I'm like, all right, nobody wants to hire a girl. And most shops that you would go into, guess what? They're all guys. I didn't know what to do. So I kind of left that alone and just kept on working my regular retail job that I hated, Being a female artist has helped and not helped, had advantages and disadvantages, definitely. Not only it's kind of like going on a job site for construction work and seeing a female there. It's just different. It's not the norm. It's not, they don't think that you can do as good of a job for whatever reason. We're still kind of stuck in that little bit of an era where that still exists. And so when I first started, a lot of people were making just rude comments, I can't really explain it. It's just really bothersome. And I didn't let it bother me as much as it probably would have. I'm a very submissive person, so I just let everything go. I'm like, whatever, you're going to say whatever you want, but I'm going to make this work for me, because, I finally got into it. I finally found a shop that let me mentor with them, and, brought me in and said, okay, you have really good artwork, because I brought in my art portfolio. You have really good artwork. Let's give you a shot. And that day, they asked me to draw a tattoo for this girl that was waiting in the waiting room. And I said, okay. And I just walked her in the back, and I drew it up. And she liked it, and she ended up getting it tattooed. And it was the coolest freaking thing ever to have, this drawing that you just did, tattooed, watching it being tattooed on somebody. And you have my art permanently on you now. Mm-hmm. That is such a trippy feeling. It just felt really good, and really kind of just a different level of happiness. I've done tattoos for people for a lot of healing methods, some people that are getting over hard struggles. A lot of people get ribbons, like the breast cancer ribbon or something like that. There's a lot of people that have come in that have just scars up their arms, or on their legs or somewhere, from that as well. And they want to hide away from that past, they don't want that anymore. They don't want it to be visible. And tattoos are a great thing to hide things like that. Yeah. My favorite tattoo is probably my chest piece right here. I got it a little over a year ago. And it's probably the most personal one, although it doesn't really look like much. It doesn't have a symbol behind it or what it really is, and that's what I like about it, is nobody can tell right off the bat what it is and what it means to me and why I got it. In the center right here, it's supposed to be a mirror, and that mirror is a reflection of what you see of me, kind of thing. So, it's more or less I'm doing my own thing, and you can have whatever reflection you want on me, but it's not going to hurt me or harm me or have any effect on me. Because at this point, I'm confident in who I am. I've gone through a lot of turmoil to get to where I'm at. When I was first getting into tattooing, I was in an abusive relationship, and that was when I first moved out here as well. It just wasn't working out. Things started getting sour. I started getting into drugs and alcohol, and it just created a world of hell for me, for the most part. And it was really hard because I had nobody out here, and no friends, no family, no nothing. So I didn't know who I could turn to, who I could trust. It was very limited to the amount of people I let know about what was going on in my life. And because I didn't know anybody, and because he was the only one closest to me, I tried to stick with him, tried to work it out, and as things progressed and got worse, I finally had to call it quits and whatnot. I was dealing with him going in and out of jail. It's a lot of hardship, a lot of struggle, a lot of financial issues, a lot of doubts. There's plenty of times I wanted to quit. A couple of times I walked out crying. This past year has been like the first time I've actually been completely happy with my career and where it's going and what it's doing. It's slowly building. It's just an in-progress thing. You have to keep on going up. And now finally getting to the point where I'm confident enough to do whatever I want. And know that I can at least try for it and have it actually possibly happen is pretty freaking cool.
From hearing the challenges from these women, I want to work hard now and start taking action rather than waiting for a chance I might not get in the future.
We are going to have challenges throughout our lives, and the challenges meet the person who they are today.
Sometimes people use their challenges and turn them into strengths.
Well, I felt like I had a lot of things in common with her because she didn't know what to do at first with her future, and I honestly have no idea what I'm going to do. I know I want to go into the cooking field. I just gotta stick to it like she did.
I realized in this experience that who you are in high school doesn't reflect on who you are as a person.
It doesn't matter if you're cool or lame because it won't matter when you are an adult.
Everyone goes through challenges. Some are worse than others, but everyone can overcome it.